Welcome to Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
What do you both think about fear?
I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations. I'm here to live up to mine.
He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life.
Fear is a teacher.
And I don't skip class.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, listeners. Today is a guest, is a living testament to resilience, divine redirection, and the transformative power of choosing purpose over pain. Reverend Shaun Grant. He was born in the heart of New Orleans, Louisiana. He's a spiritual teacher, ordained reverend, author of 9 books, inspirational speaker, actor with over 100 credits, and a dynamic creative force. As the third of 4 boys raised in the inner city, he journeyed from athlete to inspiration, from seasons of deep despair and suicidal thoughts to awakening as a psychic, intuitive, empath medium, money mystic, and founder of Lightwalker Ministry, Heart of Christ Ministry. His story embodies a profound truth. Our greatest wounds often become the birthplace of our most authentic calling. Shaun has faced overwhelming darkness, yet he chose again and again to battle back, realign with higher consciousness, and step fully into his gifts. Though his work in spirituality, self-awareness, energy healing, law of attraction, acting mindset, and financial abundance, he guides others to awaken to their divine power, authenticity, and inner wholeness. His message is clear and urgent. No matter how broken or disconnected life feels, there is always a path back to hope, healing, oneness, and the fullest expression of who you were created to be. What moves me most about Shaun's path is its raw honesty paired with hard-won victory. He doesn't just teach transformation, he has lived it. From the streets of New Orleans to Broadway stages, from inner city struggles to building multiple podcasts, publishing books that span acting technique to spiritual enlightenment, and creating tools like intuitive guided hypnosis to help other people break free from fear and uplift their frequency. His life reminds us that survival is only the beginning. True power emerges when we alchemize pain into purpose and share that light with others. And so, let's lean into this journey, his hard-earned wisdom and the heart behind the work he continues to pour into the world. Reverend, thank you so much for being here. Let's get into your story.
Wow. Can I have that introduction on tape?
I was gonna say, it sounds like I'm up on the pulpit today, right?
Yeah, man. Wow, that's
No.
amazing. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that, man. I'm very happy to be here. And, as you're reading that, it really makes me appreciate everything that I've been able to not just only do, but also, I don't like to use the word overcome, more endure, and then find the truth of it all, and then find the growth of it, and then elevate from there, and then teach it as well. It really, really touches me to hear that, because that's all my life has been, is really finding the best way to do things and then sharing that wisdom with anybody who's open and receptive to receive it. So,
Yeah, that's the
awesome.
powerful part, right, Shaun? That's the powerful part of you saying, right, sharing it, right? Because so many people, right, like you go through your resume, you're successful, right? A lot of those people keep those tools to themselves, right? Because they're afraid,
Yeah.
right? And instead of being afraid, right, you're like, here, this is how we do it. This is how you do it, right? But
Yeah.
that's the greatest part of being a great human, right? Of being kind, caring, compassionate, empathy, right?
Absolutely, man. If God is not ever withholding from us, why should we withhold from each other? Why, like in this day and age that we've, sort of been born into, you've got the social media thing, right? You've got, social media, which we're using to connect with. And there's so many outlets and tools, like you're using your podcast right now, like as well, in addition to just connect with people and to inspire them and empower them, because the reality is we're at a time, I mean, there's always space and time for inspiration, but now I feel like intuitively people need it now more than ever, because, folks are really going through some tough times, as we discussed before we got, to take the opportunity to just share what the wisdom, the knowledge, the insight, the understanding that God freely blesses us with, man. That's what it comes down to.
And that's the big thing, right? Right now, more than ever, and I say it myself, right? We all need each other, right? Whether we're, whether in America, right? I'm not even just talking in America. I'm talking worldwide, right?
Absolutely.
We all need each other, right? Muslims, Christians, Jewish, right? We all need to come together, right? And put down the whole fight of my God this, my God that, right? Go back to the days of where you were able to, right, in America, worship freely, right? If you believe it in the Muslim teachings, the Jewish teaching, the Christian teachings, then go ahead, right? But in America now, it's become such a hot topic that people want to, right, just fight. I feel like everybody wants to fight about everything nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to find a healthy outlet for that anger, but I don't feel like it's through God, right? If you look at all those religions at the very core, they all get back to God. And if we really think about what God is, infinite intelligence is, it's love and action, love and expression. Nature is, I don't want to say relentlessly, but consistently supporting nature. Life supports life, and then I feel like the root cause of our problems is because instead of us adopting and understanding that concept, that divine concept, we try and like solve it from a limited perspective. But a lot of times sitting silent, being still, asking for guidance, feeling guidance intuitively and moving from a place of love, man, you can get so much done, so much solved, as opposed to just fighting and going after it and trying to best, your fellow man and woman and stuff like that. It's gotta be a togetherness that has to happen in order for things to sort of get to a place to where they can be alleviated.
Yeah, and right now, right, you have all these wars going on around the world, right? The
Mhm.
U.S. is involved. You got Russia and Ukraine as well, and there's just so much, right? And I think as
Mhm.
Americans, right, oftentimes too, we like to put our heads down and pretend that, hey, you know what, everything's great, everything's awesome,
Yep,
right? When it's really not,
yep,
right? We got
yeah,
families struggling in America right now, right? I say it all the time. We're supposed to be the greatest country in the world, but we have veterans going to sleep on the streets, right? We have kids going to sleep hungry. We
it's
have
sad.
families, that can't pay the bills, right?
Yeah, it's insane, man, and it just shouldn't happen in a country that is as wealthy as we are. Like, it's just stupid money flowing through the United States on every front, and I don't buy the depression and all that stuff about, "Oh, no, no, there is tons of money, and why are so many people like we talked about, can't eat,
Yeah.
can't put gas in the car, can't do normal things family need to do in order to be emotionally healthy and experience that connectedness and to get, not only are we not utilizing that wealth properly, but there's not many tools out there to help the average person to do so. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing out there to help somebody to get to financial freedom because it is a lot deeper than just saving here and there, cutting back here and there. There's so many levels to and there's so many opportunities that could be had that aren't.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things, right? They should be teaching in high schools, right? Financial literacy.
Yeah, yeah,
Letting kids know, letting boys and girls know, hey, you know what? If you get it, if you're making X amount, you can invest, right? You can invest,
yeah.
you can buy, right? Buy property, you can do all that. But there's so much, right? And I think we oftentimes push kids, right? To be like, hey, you gotta go to college and you gotta learn. But for me, higher education sometimes is just more books and more learning of stuff that you're never gonna use in life.
Robotic.
Yeah, and it's like, let me go in the hole $200,000 to go to school to learn nothing and come out, and it's like, what do I do now?
I'll be honest with you. I love college and I love the experience of being an athlete and, doing the whole experience. But towards the end of my college career, that's where the suicidal thoughts and ideations and things started to really rev up because I just didn't have any tools to deal with life. I was a decent student, but then that kind of fell through the cracks. I started to fall, by the wayside and I wasn't equipped. I was in a traditional system that prepared me to be in a classroom, but didn't prepare me to be in life when things
Real
got
life,
hard.
yeah.
But that deep, deep, destitute place became sort of a starting point for me to be able to help others and to inspire people by going into the abyss, of emotional despair and self-hatred and all of these things. But that you make a great point because it literally took for me to fall down that path to be able to understand that, okay, yeah, school is great, but life is a different ball game and I got to do something different in order to turn things around and transform things.
Yeah, that pivotal moment, right? That catalyst that pushes you forward, right? To realize that, I've
Hmm.
been in the abyss myself, right? I've been there, I've been in the dark, and I say it all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I was so deep in the woods, right? And I explained it to people. It's like being in the woods with no moon, with no moon out there, right? Nobody else out there, no light, nothing. And you're literally feeling your way through like this because you don't know if there's a tree in front of you, you don't know if there's a stump, you know. And I
Yeah.
was lucky enough, right? I was lucky enough that, you know, I had some friends and family that came through, you know, with the lanterns and found me,
Yeah.
brought me out, right? And after that, it was powerful to realize, you know, that, you know, being in the dark, you know, sitting with your own thoughts, right? Those
Yeah.
suicidal ideations, right, that do come up. You know, I explained to people, right? It's not that I didn't want to be here on earth anymore, right? I just wanted the pain to stop,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
You
Just want to
know?
escape and just like hit pause if you can.
Yeah.
And you're still right. The hardest thing because at the depth, at the really, really depth of that, it's just like you said, it's not that I don't want to live anymore. I just want things to stop and have some symbionts or semblance of normalcy,
Yeah.
you know, just for a little bit. And
Yeah.
so really important point that you made.
Yeah, and I think too, right? When I came out of the darkness was one of the biggest things I had to learn, right? Was, you know, I appreciate those that came and found me in the darkness, right? But after I
Mhm.
came out, right, all the work that had to be done, I had
Yeah.
to do that work. Nobody else
Right.
could do that work for me, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's the misconception I think people get is like when they're like, "Oh, I'm on a healing journey," and it's like, "Well, you know, what did you do? What kind of work did you do?" "Oh no, I'm just on a journey," and it's like, "You ain't on no journey yet. You haven't started yet. Believe me, right? Because when you're sitting there in the dark by yourself and you're in your head, right? As I like to say, the
Yeah.
most dangerous neighborhood in the world is the neighborhood between the two ears, right? And
Yeah.
and it's one of those where it's scary. It's scary. And you go back there and you think about it. And I look back now and I say, I'm so grateful that I started on this journey of healing, right? But also doing the work of looking myself in the mirror, seeing what type of man I want to become, right? And forgiving myself, right? And then forgiving others, and then being able to be on that path of, you know, sharing my wealth and, you know, my wealth of knowledge, because I'm not wealthy, but my wealth of knowledge, right? Of everything I've been through, the paths I've gone down in life, the paths that I've, you know, I say it all the time, right, Sean? I was successful in my personal life. At work, I was very successful, right? At home, I had nothing, you
Yeah.
know, nothing,
Yeah.
you know, and I almost forgot, right, that to keep a family, to keep a wife, right, you got to put the sweat equity in at home as well, right? You know, love itself cannot sustain a relationship, right? There has to be actions behind it. There has to be so much, right?
Yeah. The energy has to be there. You know, anything that prospers has to be nurtured on some degree. And that's with every area of life for sure. No doubt.
Yeah, for me, I always thought, right, that I was paying the bills and financially taking care of everything that, hey, it was good. Everything's great, right? I'm doing what I'm supposed to. I'm a man, right? Nope.
Hmm.
When I went on that journey and I learned, shit, I wasn't taking care of anything, right? The bills are just, that's just money, right? That can take care of itself. So Sean, take us back, right, to the beginning. Who you were before the books, the ministry, the podcast, the acting credits, and the public spiritual work, right? What was
Hmm.
daily life like growing up as one of four boys in the inner city in New Orleans? And how did those early experiences shape the foundation for everything that followed?
That's a terrific question. My early life was, I would say in the beginning, it was stress free. It was a lot of fun. We weren't into technology.
Yep.
Fun consisted of spending 8 or 9 hours outside with my friends, you know, not on school days, of course, but
Yeah,
eh,
Saturday mornings, right? Like me, Sean. Saturday mornings, it'd be like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd be running out the door, right? Mom would be
yeah,
yelling at me. We got chores. No, I'm going to play baseball. I'm going to do this, right? You know,
yeah,
because now kids, you don't even see anybody on the streets. It's crazy.
no,
You know?
yeah. A few kids here and there on bikes, but I played every sport. You know, we were just really active in the neighborhood, and you know, things were really good. When I look back at my life, although there were challenges, I realized there was just really a lot of great stuff. And you know, props to my parents for really, without having much, creating a lot. And you know, it was early on was a really, really outstanding childhood as far as just filled with joy. And you know, at that age, you know, in the beginning, you're not really too concerned with money and making ends meet and all these things. But as I got into, I would say, my early teens, that's kind of when things started to change a bit, and you can kind of hear, you know, mom and dad argue about not having enough money here or this needs to be changed. And so it went from that carefree situation to being stressful. And, you know, also growing up in a highly highly just dense religious environment, there wasn't much room for authenticity. Like you just had to fall in line. And so that really made things difficult because a lot of things I felt from a free sense as an earlier child, I was sort of stymied. And I felt like I was just stiffened in a lot of ways as far as being free emotionally. And it caused so much confusion. It just made me question the natural feelings that I was used to be able to feel. And so that time, I would say about 11, 12, 13 was when things really started to get difficult. And because I didn't know myself. Once I got away from knowing who I really was when I started in life and then to where I am now, things became very challenging and complicated. And that's where you fall into fear, you fall into doubt, you fall into wondering if you're good enough and you're needing things outside of you and people are concerned with their own lives. Like, I'm one of four boys, so I'm not necessarily getting the attention that I
Yeah.
might have wanted, not on purpose, from my parents, but it's just how they're operating. They have other needs that they need to have met, but that took a toll on me emotionally. My entire teenage years became a bit of a struggle. And that really kind of started the downslope that went into the suicidal ideations and stuff when I was about 22. And then that became the changing point. One of the turning points, it was several, but around that age, which was like close to my last year of college, that was kind of the turning point where it's like, okay, something needs to be different now.
Yeah, you can't keep going down that same path, right? Or
Yeah,
it's going
exactly.
to end. It's going to end in ways you don't want it to.
Exactly.
You know. So when you say, right, keep battling back, right? What does that phrase mean to you on a deeply personal level? And how has it served as a guiding principle through the highs and lows of your journey from an athlete to spiritual teacher?
I love it. So Keep Battling Back came about. So I was 22 years old and I was playing college football in Louisiana, where I'm from, and I had basically just obliterated my hamstring. So I rehabbed, tried to come back, tore it again, rehab, tried to come back, tore it again. It just wouldn't seem to get better. And the reality of it is I needed an extended period of time off. But in the world of college sports, super competitive, there's no time off. It's
Yeah.
competition, right? So,
Someone's going
um,
to come and take your job.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was doing all the right things, going to treatment, working out, trying to get stronger, all these things, still wasn't budget. And so to add insult to injury, I flunked out of school right when that injury happened. So I found myself back in New Orleans, just trying to really figure things out and just experiencing a deep, deep, expansive level of depression. And so like anybody, depressed, wanting to escape, wanting to stop, I fell into drinking. I fell into some really hardcore alcoholism and many nights ended in me being passed out and stuff. And I remember it's about a month or two after all of this had happened. I went out and I was in the uptown area of New Orleans, which is, a pretty prevalent place where, bars and stuff like that. And I just was getting plastered. And I was by myself. I met up with a couple friends, but I was by myself, was driving. At that point, it didn't matter because I was just like, I'm just going to drown myself. So about 1:30ish or so, I decided to leave. I drive out to the lakefront, which is, the Lake Pontchartrain, which surrounds New Orleans, kind of a nice, sort of secluded, quiet place. And so I got out of my car and I look out over the embankment and I say to myself, man, like I just felt so empty and so destroyed in a lot of ways. And I felt like there was nobody there. There were people there
Yep.
in my life and they were doing the best that they could, but nobody was giving me the love that I needed, the love and support that I needed. And like you said earlier, I just wanted it to stop. I
Yeah.
just wanted just like just stop for a bit, just to pause. So I look out and I was like just thinking about everything I never accomplished, everything I just didn't get the chance to do. What is my family gonna think? Like, how are they gonna live when I'm not here anymore? And I just took a deep breath. I got into my car and I revved up the engine and the intention was to just run the car into the lake, right? 60, 90 feet deep, engine would take the car all the way down. I would sink. That would be it. right? So turn on the car, getting ready to put it into drive. My cell phone rings. And so I was like, oh, I'm not answering this. So I just clicked it, right? It's one of those big, heavy Nokia phones that we used to have when cell phones kind of first came out after the flip phone and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I rejected it the first call. And so I was getting ready to do it again, and it came through. Another call came through exactly as I was getting ready to put the car in drive. So I was like, man, what is this? And so it turns out it was one of my friends and somebody who I was close with at one time, but not so much. But at that very moment, she called and she began to say, like, I saw you were looking a bit off tonight. Like, whoa, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Life is so difficult. Life is so tough. And it just does not seem to be getting better. I just don't think, there's no love, there's no support. And I mean, she went from there. She just let me have it. I just like, don't do anything so stupid. Stop thinking about yourself. Stop being selfish. So many people love you. Like, I still love you. Your family loves you. Just think about what will happen to all of them if you go through with this. It's like, life is tough. Okay, life is tough for everybody, but
Yeah.
you got to keep battling back. You just got to keep battling back. And I was like, ironically, it gave me a deep sense of peace when she said that. Now, I still felt like crap,
Yeah.
but I felt like less crap. And so, we hung up. Like I said, I felt that peace. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go home and sleep and just sleep on it and just kind of figure things out. So I woke up next morning, just felt like the worst you could ever think of with a hangover. Those words rang true to me so much that I'm like, okay, let me give this a shot. Let me continue to battle back when
Yeah.
life is fighting me on the deepest level. And so I wish I could say things got better, but they actually got worse. Right. But the beauty is in them being worse, I was more prepared internally from a mental standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, just by having that one person reach out and support me. And I really feel like that was just divine intervention, an act of God really giving me exactly like an injection
Yeah.
of energy at that time. And I just used that to continually just build on that point on, from that point on, and try to share that same energy with anyone who's willing to listen to it or anybody who's going through that same sort of circumstance with suicide and suicidal ideations and all.
Yeah. It was that mindset shift,
Yes. Yeah.
you know?
It clicked.
Yeah, it clicked, and right from then, from when you heard those words, right, you knew, right? Whatever was going to come your way, you were going to keep battling back
That's
because,
it.
because we all know, right? I don't care who you meet in life. Life comes at you quick, right? Throws you
Yeah.
curveballs, fastballs, changeups, right? It
Yeah.
comes at you quick, right? Some days life beats
Yeah.
the hell out of you, right? But some
Yeah.
days you beat the hell out of life.
Yeah.
And that's life, but it's how we respond. And thank goodness for your friend that called and reached out, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
it took that call and for her to hit you with that truth, right? To let you
Yeah.
know
And
that you
it's
deserve to be
amazing
here.
that it wasn't like we weren't even really that close anymore. But it's amazing God used somebody that I would have never expected to make that call. I would have
Yeah.
thought my best friend at the time or my brother or somebody. No, somebody completely different who God knew I would listen to, who wasn't just kind of, blowing smoke.
Yeah.
They were like being completely honest, and that was really powerful, really powerful.
Yeah. That's the big thing though, having that one person, right? When you
Yeah.
feel like nobody's there,
Yeah.
it's like that one person that calls. So, Shaun, at what point in your life, right, did you move from simply experiencing your spiritual sensitivities to fully understanding that this path was not just part of your life, but your undeniable calling and ministry?
Ah, wow. Okay. You got some great questions here. I think I've always felt it, right? I've always had that sort of sixth sense in knowing about intuition and the psychic ability and all that stuff. Because I would get visions, I would get downloads, I call them, and very, very sensitive. I remember being very, very sensitive as a child. But the problem is that instead of allowing those things to naturally develop, I overheard someone in the church saying, oh, okay, well, psychic, fortune tellers, seers, all that's devil's work. You're going to hell if you deal with any of it. So I suppressed it. I suppressed it so deeply and so strongly that like it would try to emerge ever so often. And it was just stuff that I know I just noticed. I just had a knowing about it and an empathic feeling. And it was so prevalent, but I just kept burying it until one day where it just got to be too much. And that whole suicide thing came back. And this was recent. This was like, I want to say last year. It came back, and I mean, it was raging. And all of that stuff I felt at 22, it was so depressing. There were days I couldn't even get out of bed.
Yep.
You just remember I was in my meditation room and I was just sitting there and I was just like, I need answers. Like, what is causing me to feel like I shouldn't exist anymore? And in the most subtle voice possible, you've denied the most authentic version of yourself, which is your intuition, your psychic ability, your empathic ability, right? You've been given this gift, but you suppressed it so much and it's caused you to hate yourself. And when you hate yourself, suicide doesn't just happen physically. You kill yourself emotionally and mentally
Yeah.
over and over and over again until the act of it comes through, unless there is an intervention. And that's what was happening with me. And then once I realized that, once I figured that out, it sort of just exploded that barrier. And I knew in my heart, it's like, you know what? I want to help other people to try and find their most authentic self, to try to remove the barriers to that. Because I knew at that point in time, if I could get through that a second time, that like, and the amount of happiness that it brought, it didn't matter what else was going on outside, how much money I had, where I was living, anything, that brought so much happiness for me to just be able to be me. And I just, there was such a strong desire to share that through my social media, through coaching, through counseling, writing these books and everything. And it really opened me up to having the passion and purpose to do this. But more importantly, seeing that, okay, God put me through all of that to be able to do this stuff and to be able to back and empower others.
And to be your true, authentic self.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I say it oftentimes, right, Sean? And I had a guy on the other night, and I said it to him. What's the first thing everybody puts on when they first wake up in the morning?
Let me see.
It's easy.
A smile.
What'd you say?
I said a smile, right?
So every morning, right, everybody wakes up and puts a mask on, right?
I love, yeah.
And I say it, right? When you're able to be a true, authentic self, you don't have to put that mask on anymore. You don't have to fake who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, how much money. You don't have to do any of that, right? You're just your true, authentic self.
Yeah.
And that's the most powerful thing I learned, right, was taking that off and not having to put it back on, right? And not be in fear of what, my friend's going to say, my coworker's going to say, maybe a girlfriend or a friend's going to say, you know what, I don't care because I'm being myself, you know?
I love it. And that's so important. For a while, when I first got on the journey, I learned like to go to the mirror, place your hand up on the mirror, look yourself right in the eyes and just say, I love you 10 times. And it shifted so much because, me personally, a lot of my trauma was trying to get love from all these sources, right? Just trying to get love from there, from that person, people pleasing, like approval seeking. And once I
Looking
really
for
understood,
love in all the wrong places.
yeah, exactly. But once I really learned how to love myself, I'm like, dang, this was it all along. Like I didn't need it from anybody. I just had to go to the source, to God, and let God instruct me to go to myself to show that love and just let that cycle through. And man, it opened up so much more in life. I didn't need anything on the outside anymore. And you know what? Not needing it, I could enjoy it so much more because there wasn't an attachment to it.
Yeah, so much
Amazing.
more. And I say that, right? At 41, I'm 41, and I just learned that myself. And I said to a friend of mine, I found love. And they said to me, is she beautiful? What'd she look like? What color is she? And I go, no, it's nobody. I found love. I fell in love with myself. I found the love in myself, right?
Yeah.
And my friend's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, man, you don't understand how freeing it is. Like once you find love for yourself, that love, right, just overflows out of you to everybody else around you, right? And it just feels so great. And also for me now, when I finally found the love for myself, was actually now living in the present.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not worried about yesterday, not worried about tomorrow because it may not come.
Yeah.
I mean, still paying my bills and all that, but I don't want to tell people like, yeah, it's great. You don't have to pay your bills. They're going to pay themselves now. You got to pay your bills, right?
You don't want to
But
come after you.
yeah, but just loving yourself, and it's not selfish, right? I always thought, when growing up and the man that I was taking care of everybody else, and that was powerful, right? And that was love, right? Until I found the love for myself and realizing that I got to take care of myself. I got to
Yeah.
take care of myself first before I can take care of anybody else, right? But
Yeah.
also I got to love myself first so I can love others, right? Because the love that I gave before was very transactional and different than the love I
Yeah.
give now, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's especially for guys. I think men, it's hard when you hadn't been taught
Yeah.
how to do. It's hard when you've been taught your measure of love is what you materially bring to the table, right? But if you're an emotional wreck and you hadn't been held or you don't know how to hold yourself
Yeah.
and really give yourself the space and like you mentioned, forgive yourself, right, for all the stuff that has happened in the past, you not only cause problems for yourself, you cause problems for your family. Like
Yeah.
the powerful man in a relationship is an emotionally regulated individual who is emotionally intelligent enough to be able to like understand what he needs internally as well as externally.
Yeah.
Because the way yeah, provider is great and paying bills and all that stuff is terrific, but you got to be so much more, whether you have kids or wife or not. Like for yourself,
Yeah.
you got to be centered, you got to be grounded, because that's the only way you can really make decisions that allows you to be your best.
Yeah. Yeah. Before you show up for anybody else, you got to show up for yourself first.
Self-love is pivotal.
It's huge, right? And it's not selfish either. So, Shaun, you
Mhm.
have written 9 books, right? Covering topics from acting and auditioning techniques, right? To money, mindset, and abundance, to spirituality, self-awareness, and conscious living. What is the unifying thread that connects all of these seemingly diverse areas at their core?
Honestly, I would say there's a couple. The reason for the books comes from the love of self, and then that love beginning to express itself towards humanity. So it was always the idea of how many people can I help, right? Well, you know what? If I write a book, it's out there across the world. Let me do that, right? So I did that, and then it just one turned into two turned into four, and it became like this consistent expression of divine energy, completely rooted in love to just help whoever could relate to the topic of the book that I was writing. And the second theme is just mindset, right? Understanding that, how we think about life is how we're going to feel about life.
Yeah.
So we have to set ourselves up to a space where we can, I don't necessarily say think positive, but be as authentic as possible. And I think when you're authentic, positive thoughts and ideas come a lot more frequently as opposed to not, right? And thinking in an authentic way can easily be, yeah, you know what? I could have done better in doing this, but I love myself for the effort that I gave and I can appreciate the outcome and I can move on being at peace. So it's not like covering things and putting, a paint job on an old Pinto or something like that, but it's more or less like embracing the moment, embracing what is, loving yourself through it, forgive yourself through it, and then understanding like, okay, at the end of the day, it's just all love. It's just an opportunity for me to love myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the third theme I would say is just spirituality, has the way life operates and the underlying energy and the underlying spirit of things and how they function is encompassed in all 9 of these books that I've.
So, what do you believe most people often misunderstand, right, about spirituality, healing, self awareness, in the role of money or success within a conscious life?
I think the thing people misunderstand the most is a hermetic law called the law of correspondence. And it's also in the Bible. And that law in a nutshell is as within, so without. And I always say as in thought, so in manifestation. So who we are in here, in our hearts, in our minds, will ultimately translate out into what our life becomes and manifests itself. And if we're honest, once again, authentic and centered and grounded enough to really see who we are and embrace that and change it, heal, elevate if needed, we can begin to see our lives transform by discovering who we truly are. internally. And the same thing is, it goes with everything, with money, with relationships, everything outside of you is a reflection of who you truly are on the deepest level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that gets, it gets lost, right? Being your
Yeah.
true, authentic self, right?
Mm.
Oftentimes people think that they are who they are when they're really not,
Yeah.
who they think they are. Because, you can have all the money in the world. You can have all of that, right? You can have the nice car, the nice house, and you come home empty, not feeling loved or not
Yeah.
sharing love, right? It's
Mhm.
again, it's the love that we have for each other. It's the love we have for ourselves, right? Not just our family and friends and community, but
Yeah.
for humanity, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, I can tell you, I got a psychic download one time, and I was talking about this on another podcast, and I just got this nudge to go and watch the near death experiences. And I just watched one day, I think I watched like 20 of them on YouTube because I was just so intrigued. And I feel like spiritually I was being guided to do it. And so I remember meditating afterwards, and the theme of every single one was every time they got to a place where they thought their life was over, the only question was, how did they express love while they were here,
Yeah.
on earth? And I was like, man, okay, that's telling me something. It wasn't like, okay, how much did you make in 1965? Right? Like where was the house? Was it, on Hilton Head in South Carolina or the Hamptons? Like it was none of that. It was always like, did you show love to your fellow man and to yourself when you had the opportunities? And I'm like, for me, it changed so much because it was like, okay, that's great to have all that stuff. But if you don't have the love to back it, to appreciate and to use it and not to get attached to it, like there's something missing in your life,
Yeah.
But when it starts with that love, that concept of divine love, of God filtering its energy into you and you filtering that out to others and to yourself, most importantly, if it doesn't start with that, there's going to be some issues.
Yeah, and I think like what you said, right? Filtering it out and having that love, right? From the
Mm.
high about power to yourself and then out, to the world, to the community, because I think now often days, the love isn't what it used to be. We oftentimes now, we shun our neighbors. I remember as a kid growing up, my mom and dad would be like, hey, go next door and grab a stick of butter from the neighbor. Go grab some salt from the neighbor, go grab
Yeah.
a loaf of bread from the neighbor. And it's like
Yeah.
nowadays I couldn't imagine going to my neighbor and what they would
No.
say or what they would do, right? And that's the community you live in. And I think, we need to get back to the ground roots of loving, just simply loving each other and spreading love, kindness, in awareness that we're all in this together and we only have each other.
Yeah, for sure. I think early on in my life, the one thing I noticed about that, like you said, that neighborhood growing up, there was camaraderie. Like, my friends would come and eat at my house. I would go eat at their house. Their mom disciplined me. My mom would discipline them. Everybody kind of understood we were all in the same lane, living the same goal of just, trying to be there for each other and support each other and love each other as best as we could. And when I look back on it, it makes me miss it a lot because for the simple fact of what you just said, it was so easy
Yeah.
to have a family that was extended beyond the blood relatives
Yep.
because everybody just felt safe. Everybody just felt like we felt kin. Like it was
Yeah.
like uncle, cousins, and aunts, and extended sisters and brothers. And so
And you
it's such a
felt the
beautiful,
love.
yeah, yeah. And like looking back on that, you appreciate it so much more because it doesn't happen all the time, right? Like
Yeah.
I have some nice neighbors, a lot of nice neighbors, but some people, I've been living where I've been living for 3 years, and I hadn't seen them like other than going to work and doing certain things. They don't stop to talk. They don't stop to communicate. It's like there's no camaraderie anymore with that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no more. It's tough. It's tough because, like you said, that while you were saying it, takes me back to being a kid and walking into friends' homes, seeing their mom and dad, or just seeing their mom or grandparents, right, or aunt or uncle. But I always remember it would always be like you felt safe, you felt loved, and it was a special feeling.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Everybody looking out for you in the neighborhood.
yeah,
I didn't grow up in the best neighborhood, but like I knew I had like 4 or 5 mamas looking out the window,
Yeah.
Keep an eye on things. It's amazing to think back
And you
to
were
that.
on your best behavior because if you got in trouble, they would call you out, right?
Yeah,
They would be calling mom and dad saying, "Hey," so you would
yeah,
always be on your best behavior, you know?
yeah. Like he out here acting a fool.
Exactly. So, Shaun, how has your background writing professional acting, including Broadway and over 100 projects, shaped
Yeah.
the way you communicate spiritual truth, teach, and hold space for others today?
I think the biggest thing it influences is no judgment, right? As an actor, in order for you to truly embody being that character, you can't judge. And I feel like one of the most compelling experiences was the first time I ever played a villain. And I learned something so pivotal to the human being and the human psyche and all. And it was to a villain is not a villain or a bad guy. They're just believing that their objectives, their goals, their intentions are
All right.
right,
Yeah.
right? And they feel like they're creating purpose with what they believe, right? And so it was powerful because I went from judging and basically just pushing away those type of people in life to now all of a sudden, well, let me understand what the motives are, what the psychology behind him or her doing what they're doing. And it just kind of revolutionized my ability to step into it and really kind of take on those different sort of roles on that end. And even also, like, just in general, everybody has an intention, everybody has a purpose, everybody moves with what they feel inspired to do on the deepest level. And if that's like rob banks or, feed the poor, whatever it is, it's natural to them.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties in to spirituality in the sense that, like, spirituality is at its strongest when we let go of all judgment, when we're just observing, when we're just being present, we're just being centered and really trying to dive into the spirit of things and see what comes up, right? Not even just pulling it out or forcing it out, but just allowing it to be born and to be expressed. It really helps us to evolve from a spiritual point at that point in time.
Have you ever worked with any famous actors?
Yes. 50 Cent, Val Kilmer, David Chokichi from Baywatch. I did
Yeah.
a movie with. I did a music video with Neo back in the day. Who else? There's been a few of them that I
What was
think
Val
about.
Kilmer like? What was Val Kilmer like?
You know, he was at this point, man, where he was struggling. He was
Yeah.
struggling. He had the drug problem and he was having issues, with his throat where he had the
Yeah.
cancer. All of that was coming to the forefront. So he was very, like, secluded by himself. He wasn't talkative or anything else or anything like that.
Yeah.
50 Cent, on the other hand, was just cool and calm. Like, he introduced himself as Curtis. He was just like one of the other guys, so, like, you start to realize 50 Cent is a character.
Yeah, that ain't him
Curtis
exactly.
Jackson. Yeah, Curtis Jackson is a real person.
He's a
And so he
businessman.
was just down to earth. He was mellow. He was chill. Now, the funniest thing was he pulled up to set and he got out of he got, he pulled up to set. They're in a bulletproof Jeep Grand Cherokee and they get out the car and these guys, I mean, like, they look like action figures.
Yeah.
Like, you remember the Ultimate Warrior from the WWE back in
Yeah.
the day? This is what these guys look like. And they got G Unit, on their shirt, got the sunglasses, and they're like looking around. I was like, wait a minute. We're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, this country place. I was like, I don't think anybody's out here to try to get 50.
Coming to get
But
you.
yeah, he had his bodyguards, but he was real cool, man. He was just like one of the fellas.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah,
experience.
I've had the unbelievable opportunity to meet many famous actors. My favorite one of all time was Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jack Nicholson is the same exact character you see on TV and in interviews
Yeah.
then you meet, right? I was on the
Yeah.
set of The Departed in a housing project here in Boston,
Okay.
and Jack Nicholson comes through, he does a scene, and everybody leaves, and he's there smoking cigarettes, just looking around, and I'm like, "Man, this is Jack Nicholson, like, what is he doing?" And he says, "Look, everybody, I'll sign autographs, I'll take pictures. Everybody gets an autograph, everybody gets a picture, just don't encroach my space, right? Once you do, I'm
Yeah.
leaving.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything's cool." And he sat there and he shot the shit. He made fun of people. He was the best. He was one of the coolest guys ever. And to see that, right, was like, man, this is Jack Nicholson. Like, the guy you see on TV in the movies, this is like Jack Nicholson, like the coolest guy ever. And then John Voight. John Voight was one of the coolest
Okay.
guys I ever met. You know, he was really cool. I say this, he was here shooting Ray Donovan, and I was working. So I was working right where they were shooting, and there
Yeah.
was 5 homeless guys out front, and they didn't want to move. So John
Mm.
Voight went to the production company and said, "Hey, just keep them in, just pay them for the day, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to move." And so he pays them for the day. And I remember going outside to have a smoke break, and there's the homeless guys, all 5 of them in a circle, and I'm like, "What the fuck? What's going on?" Right? John Voight's in the middle of them, just shooting the shit like a regular guy. He's fake boxing with them, but you
Yeah.
know what? John Voight, a guy that's worth $100 million, right? You know, iconic actor, whether you like his politics or not, right? Here he is taking his time with 5 homeless guys, right? There's a guy that
Treated
didn't
just
forget where he
like,
came from, you know?
yeah. I love that, man. And that's what it comes down to. I've had a lot of experiences where people think they're bigger
Yeah,
because of their status and their stature. But ultimately, man, it warms your heart when you meet these guys and these women who are like, these celebrities, yet they still understand their people.
yeah,
And they still understand, like, you know what? Like Josh Brolin was somebody I met who was just outstanding.
yeah,
He was such a guy's guy. Like, he was such a guy you would just meet him in the bar, have a beer, like, and he would ask you about your life. Like, he was that interested. And everybody's like, man, this is Josh Brolin from all these movies. His mom is Barbara Streisand. Like, but you couldn't tell. Like, he
yeah,
was just that down to earth, kind of like John Voight. Like, he had realized, you know what, fame, success, money, it's not everything. Being a good human being is. And it was amazing to meet him
yeah.
on set. It was,
And it's great to hear stories like that, right? Because, you think of it like I met Leonardo DiCaprio. He's the biggest dickhead I've ever met,
yeah, yeah. I've heard that.
you know?
Unfortunately, he's one who let his success get to his head, and he's not. That's because he's so disconnected from people. Like, I think when you do that, when you disconnect yourself from the very people that are supporting you
Yeah,
and like keeping you afloat, that's when you have issues. Like, that's when you have problems because you forget how to be human.
yeah.
Like, you forget the very essence of human is what? Kindness and compassion. Like,
Yeah, and I just don't get it. I forget the name. Was it what the hell was his name? He was doing an interview. I can't think of his name, but he's a famous actor. And they were saying, "Hey, you signed so many autographs to take so many photos." And he said, "Look, these people put my kids through college.
yeah,
They pay my bills." He goes,
yeah,
Billy Bob Thornton it was. And he goes, "That's the
yeah,
least I could do."
yeah,
Okay, if I'm walking through the city, he goes, "But look, there's a time and a place for everything. If I'm sitting down at dinner,
yeah,
don't come bother me, you know?" He goes, I'll sign your autographs when I get up and come outside. He goes, "I'm not gonna, refuse a photo." Or he goes, "But, sometimes you have to understand, I'm eating dinner or I'm eating a bagel or having a coffee, right? Just give me a few minutes and I'll sign your autographs." But and it's cool because it's like those people get it, right? Like when I met Jack Nicholson, when I tell you, man, I figured Jack Nicholson would be one of those guys that acts like that.
yeah.
You know?
Like the cat, right?
Yeah, like DiCaprio, right? And if
Because
Jack
he has the resume.
Nicholson did that, I'd be like, you know what? That's Jack Nicholson. That's okay. He can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence was the same way as Leonardo DiCaprio.
I'll be authentic here. I hope that type of stuff gets out to at least give them the opportunity to change who they are. But I don't think it gets out enough because the media doesn't really focus on things like that. I feel like that really needs to be known that these people, and I mean, look, I'm not trying to control anybody, but at the same time, be kind, be compassionate, right? People admire you and what you do. Show some appreciation.
Yeah, I refuse to watch a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Yeah, yeah,
People are like, "You're crazy." And I go, "Look, if you were there,
yeah,
you would understand. I would
yeah,
never support anybody that treated me that way."
yeah,
Because he didn't, if he just said like, he didn't acknowledge anybody, he didn't even say hello, he didn't even wave, nothing. He just put his hat down, went with security, and it's just like, we were on a closed set.
yeah. Be disconnect everybody.
Yeah, from everybody, from the staff, from people working there, and it was just like, frustrating. So what was, I know you've done Broadway as well, right? What's one of the favorite shows you've done on Broadway?
So it's been so long, man. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. My greatest stage play that I feel like I've ever participated in and ever done was my 5th grade stage play called the Earth Day. And I'm gonna tell you what, I was young, I was hungry, and what was amazing about that is I didn't have a big role with big lines. I was like singing in the choir, right?
Yeah.
Is the Earth Day play. And the beauty of it is I wasn't the star of it or anything else, but I had so much fun, like observing everything happen and just watching it unfold and being a part of like the audience interacting. And, we weren't getting paid for it or anything like that, but I could just remember I was so present. I was so present. It wasn't like a worry about, got to do this perfectly, got to get that perfectly, got to make sure you land it this way and that. And there's so many of those things running through your head as you get older and you participate in these bigger productions that I feel like my favorite was when I was a kid, when I was 10 years old. And I
Yeah.
just like the essence of it was so pure
Yeah.
and it was just there and it was so exciting. And I remember that to this day, it's like, that's what it's all about. And, nowadays film and television really gives me that. So I kind of veer more towards that. But I would say favorite play had to be Earth Day, 5th grade.
That's awesome. So, what do you say, right, to someone who's currently feeling stuck, right, broken,
Mhm.
disconnected from their purpose, or overwhelmed by life's challenges, right? Perhaps even questioning if healing or hope is still possible for them.
I think the biggest thing and I'm going to take Jimmy's advice here, you got to bring yourself back to the moment. Okay. And when you can bring yourself back to the moment, the first thing you got to do is just breathe and breathe for like a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long you got. Just breathe. Just sit there and breathe. And if you ask yourself the simple question of, do I truly have everything I need right now in this moment? 999% of the time, unless it's some type of extenuating circumstance, you realize, man, I got everything I need. All I had to do was just breathe, calm down, relax, ask the right question, formulate the right mindset. I got everything I need. Wow. So then you make it a point to because when we get overwhelmed, we get anxious. A lot of times it's just us going into the future or shooting back to the past, right? It creates anxiety because
Yeah,
we're
the
trying
body
to,
keeps it to score.
exactly, we're trying to control things and it wrecks your nervous system to such a high degree. Whereas if you just come right back to the present and you say, okay, wow, this is amazing. That's amazing. Right. Like for the longest time, I was carrying around this index card and it's like, where's the evidence of my abundance in my life? And as you look at it and something will pop up, something I didn't even think of that happened earlier would happen, evidence of abundance, right? Something to be grateful for. And that's what that's what mindfulness, being centered in the moment, does, is it makes you grateful for your life. And then it begins to change things because you're no longer looking at it from anxiety, from control, from attachment. You're looking at it from a state of peace, from a state of groundedness and gratitude. And breathing just brings you right back there. Because I feel like when we get stressed out, we tend to forget to breathe in a rhythmic sort of
Yeah.
capacity. So you always got to bring yourself back, even amidst like chaos, whatever it is, just
Yeah. Yeah. Once you
really,
start feeling that tightness in your chest and you start feeling,
yeah,
you got to just ground yourself, right? And just, like you said, just
absolutely,
breathe. And I
absolutely.
say it all the time and people look at me like I'm crazy, sometimes when I'm going through it and they're like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Look, if you ask me if I'm okay one more time, I'm gonna punch you in the face. Okay? I'm just trying to breathe and I'll be okay.
Yeah,
Just give me a few minutes, right? Because
yeah.
when you're anxious and your anxiety's kicking in, the last thing you want to hear is, "Hey, you okay?"
You
And it's like,
okay? Yeah.
"No, I'm not okay. I'm just trying to breathe here. Give me 2 minutes and I'll be okay," right?
Give me,
Exactly.
yeah. You don't rush the computer hey,
Exactly. Let it load. Exactly.
let it load, right?
Two more questions, Shaun, right? So, what do you hope people feel, right, emotionally, energetically, or spiritually after hearing your story, listening to you on podcasts, or reading your books?
Uplifted. I hope that they can feel the joy, freedom, and permission to be themselves completely.
Yeah.
Because our greatest gift back to God is being exactly who God created us to be. So I hope that they can feel that the door is open for them to walk right through and be themselves. And it's not always the most popular, choice for people, but it is worth it. And it is the most fulfilling one when you can stick with it.
So before I get to the last question, right, let the listeners know where they can find you. I know I'm going to link your link tree. I know they have all that there, but just, give them a quick little where they can find you now.
Yeah. So I'm big on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. TikTok is at THEUPLIFTER 504, the uplifter 504. Instagram is at IANSHAUNGRANT. I am Shaun Grant. Facebook is just my name, Shaun Grant. And then YouTube, you can find me, my ideas at sgrant28. So it's just Shaun Grant once again. And so if you want to go direct, send me an email, SHAUNG04 at gmail.com. And that's pretty much the best ways to get in touch with me.
Perfect. We're not going to give you his number so you can call him and bother him. We're not going to do that, but Shaun, before I get to the last question, right, I do want to say, right, I've done over probably 100 interviews, right? 50 of them have been, uploaded and edited, and I still have 50 more to go that are in the, I like to say I have a podcast for years to come, right? So, but I do want to say one thing, right, that I truly appreciate this. Out of all the people I've interviewed, this conversation has been the most authentic conversation I've ever had.
Thank you.
It really has been. It makes me think, that this is the reason why I do podcasting, right?
That's awesome. Yeah.
Because sometimes when I get on the, mic and you have some people that come on and you're looking at the time and you're like, we're half an hour in, this is going to be a good episode. We're done, and this, I feel like we could go on forever, right? We go on for days and keep going. And I appreciate it because it's so authentic, right? Where my listeners, because most of the time, if when they listen to my podcast, they don't hear me talk much, right? Unless I do Mental Health Mondays, so I speak often on that. But like I said before we started, right? This is my platform, but this is your journey. So I let people come on and talk about their life. But, this has been, one of the funnest ones I've had, one of the most exciting and entertaining ones. And just the conversation's been authentic. So I just want to thank you for that before we get to that the last question, right?
Oh, man, thank you so much too. Yeah, definitely feel the same vibe. So
yeah,
I'm happy we got the time to really,
connect,
talk it out, be ourselves, because ultimately that's how we build the strongest connections for sure.
Yeah,
so
and that's
thank you.
I appreciate that. And that's the big thing I think, guys need to realize, right? That we can come together, we can talk, right? We can have great conversations, right? And that when it comes to mental health too, when you're going through it,
Yeah.
reach out to that person that you can trust, right? And I say this all the time because I mean it. If you feel like you don't have anybody you can trust or that you can trust with that, call 988. You can text or call 988.
Yeah.
It's anonymous. They'll always text you back right away. They'll answer the phone right away, right? I always keep this right here, right? 988,
Yeah.
And people ask me, why do you talk about it all the time? And I said, look, I've been there. Even recently, I've been there. And 2, 3 in the morning, right? I'm not going to call anybody. I'm going to call 988.
Yeah.
Because it's so vital to, just to call. I had a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago who used it and they called her for 4 days straight to check in on her, make sure she was okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's powerful.
That's humanity. That's what's needed, man. Because it's human beings. When we feel like we're alone, we feel like we're lonely. That's when the damage really starts to expand.
Yeah.
Right. When it's really, when you feel like you have no support. So that's amazing that resource is there. So
It's so powerful, right, Shaun? I think you said it best, right? When we are going through, right, we don't realize we're not just hurting ourselves, right? In our mind, we're going through so much, but when we come home, it's like a tornado, right? We're picking everything up and throwing it around, whether it's, your wife, your kids, you may have a roommate, grandma, grandpa, dad, mom, right? It's affecting everyone, so everybody,
Absolutely.
it's tough, but if you're going through it, you can always call, you can reach out 988 or, when I say this, I'm not a mental health professional, but I'm from lived experience when I talk about what I'm talking about,
which is absolutely just as good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I've had some therapists, Shaun, where I've gone in and I start talking and they're like, we're not taking new patients.
Crazy.
And I'm like,
man.
okay, no problem. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
Shaun, looking ahead, right? What legacy do you hope to leave through your books, teachings, ministry, and spiritual message? And how do you envision that ripple effect continuing beyond your lifetime?
Honestly, I think the biggest legacy as we've continued to rehash is your greatest gift back to God is being your true self. And I think that is the most overarching thing. But as far as leaving, honestly, I think for your life becomes its best when you're honest with yourself, when you take care of yourself mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and more importantly, when you love yourself. If you love yourself, great things can happen. If you love yourself, even when bad things happen, they can turn into great things. Starting with love, no matter what it is, in every area, whether it's career, whether it's relationships, whether it's money, whether it's spirituality, you start with love, you're always going to come out, on the better end of things. And that's ultimately what we're here to do. Use our gifts, express them, but more importantly, how do we love humanity? How do we love ourselves? How do we show up in love every single day is a legacy that I feel like I want my work to leave.
Yeah. And leaving the world with more love than when when you came in, right? So, Shaun,
Absolutely.
thank you
Yeah.
for bringing your truth, right? Your hard-earned wisdom, your vulnerability, and your unshakable light to the conversation. Your story is a powerful reminder that pain does not get the final word, that even in our darkest seasons, healing, purpose, divine direction, and authentic power are only possible, but waiting to emerge. For anyone listening or reading who needed this today, let it be a reminder to keep battling back, keep choosing growth, keep honoring the divine spark within you, and keep becoming the fullest, most authentic version of who you were created to be. Your story is not over. It's still unfolding, and it matters. To connect with Reverend Shaun Grant, Robert Grant, in the divine, and dive deeper into his work, you can find him through his link tree here, and I'll link it. It's Linktree/Shaun Grant, but I'll get that all in the notes when we upload it. So please take a moment to explore and support his books, podcasts, ministry offerings, and spiritual tools. And if this conversation touched you, share it with someone who needs encouragement, hope, and a reminder that transformation is always within reach. Shaun, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Appreciate you too. Thanks for having me.